Hey, what is going on, YouTubers, and welcome to the very first episode of Aiden's Odd Aquariums. I'm glad to have you here, and I'm keen to show you what I can do. So the basis of Aiden's Odd Aquariums, I've always had a thing for wanting to do scapes or just shapes of tanks that are just a little bit out of the ordinary, whether it's a way a light's set up or whether the scape's set out or certain ornaments or even just the shapes of tanks. I've got plans coming up in the future that I really reckon you will all love, and I am so keen to get started. So for now I'll introduce you to the very first scape that I've got for this episode. Alright, so basically to get started, the tank that I'm working on is a 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter cube. Should hold about 28 to 30 litres depending. Just an old wooden table that I've had much larger tanks on in the past, but I'm going to get started by making a foam base out of some yoga mat and putting some frosted background on to add some effect for later. Alright, so now next step, I'm going to start putting some frosting on the background, and honestly, with it all being pretty alright, I'm not a huge fan of the black trimming on the edges, but I'll pick that side to be the back, and yeah, we'll get onto it. Now that time lapse could not have gone any worse. I absolutely butchered that process, but I certainly didn't pick the best side when it come down to it. Turns out, because it's a second-hand tank and a lot of builds I will be doing will be with second-hand tanks. See, I missed a little bead of silicone that had come out the bottom of the tank, and then putting the film on kind of made it all bind up and catch, which is a little bit of a pain. But anyway, it's on there, but that's not the main focal point of the tank. It's more or less on there just to add a little effect. Right, there we are. Back up and running with the nice frosted background. Hopefully it's, going to help out quite a lot. Now the light setup on this tank, I'm actually going with a really interesting, I'm just going to use a desk lamp idea. I got that from other content creators from YouTube and stuff making their aquariums. I found it's absolutely brilliant. It can be really good at growing tanks, adds a really nice look to the style of it, and I think the whole theme of it and everything will work with the scape that I'm going to work with at the moment. Alright, so next I'm going to start working on the base layer with a bit of the scaping moving towards the back of the tank. I want a bit of depth, longer field of view to make the tank seem larger than it actually is. Plus, I'll be using here, where is it? There. Basically, it's just a mesh bag with a little tie off on the end that's got, you can just clamp that shut. And you can fill it with media and whatever, and it's going to help with beneficial bacteria, and I'll be able to mold it and sort of scape it into a shape that I want, and then I can cover that with gravel and sand over top to really sort of add an effect to the tank. So what I'll be working with is just basically crushed lava rock. Well, it's not really crushed, it's sort of just really quite small, just a really fine gravel. And yeah, basically it's going to help me mold the shape of the bag to how I want to start building the foundation for my Scape. So for now, it's just the one bag I've got there. I've had to sort of divide it in the middle a little bit. I've only got the one bag to work with. To try and create a low in the center with some higher points on either side. It's going to come up a fair bit more once the substrate and the hardscape gets put on top of it. But for now, it sort of just gives me a little bit of direction as to where I want the tank scape to be headed. Alright, so it's the next day. I ended up having to postpone the build because I realized I was finishing it up at some ridiculous hour of the night. So it's the next day and I'm going to get stuck into washing and getting the substrate ready, and I'll skip all that process and I'll cut to where it's getting put in. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to be doing is just adding plain old aquarium root tabs. Yeah, I've sourced these from eBay and I've used them in other tanks and whatnot, and they have done absolutely fantastically. So I'm just going to put them underneath some of this gravel to give some plant food for later on. Now the next stuff I'll be adding is biosubstrate. It's just basically a sand that's been loaded with beneficial bacteria. Again, I've used this on a few other Scapes and it has just helped with the cycle so much faster. Now next is onto the hardscape. I've just picked out a few large sort of arid looking stones, sort of desert style kind of stones with really sort of similar colours. Hopefully build a bit more structure to it all. Alright, you can see there it's actually looking really good. I've got a bit of direction going. You'll have to excuse the glare. Yeah, just wanted to sort of scatter it like a dry riverbed looking sort of Scape, and now it's time to add the plants. So before I get stuck into the plants, I went and actually added some just little bits of hardwood sticks that I found out in the back paddock. I've got them all locked in under some rocks so they're not going to go anywhere. Normally I'd use super glue, but I don't have any with me at the moment. But I just figured it'd add more of a effect to the Scape. So the plants I'm working with on this one is I've just got some dwarf hairgrass, some regular hairgrass, and just some green rush. It's a pretty hardy plant. They're usually pretty easy to grow. Don't need too much light for each of them. And I reckon they'll complement the Scape really nicely. you can see there, I've just removed all the hair grass from the rock wall. Yeah, just pulled it out and sat it aside. Doesn't need to be in there, and I'm just going to aim for try and have about 3 large clumps of the stuff. I'll figure out in a minute where I'd like to put them, and next it's onto the dwarf hair grass, and I've just got to remove it from the gel. You basically just soak it in some water, which I've got set aside, and gently pull it apart and it all comes out, and I'll get those prepped up now too. Alright, so all the hair grass is divided and sorted out. I'm just going to start setting them up in the tank where I think they'll work best. Next is just green rush. Yeah, really strong roots, very sort of hardy plant. I'll pick some of these yellow leaves off that don't need to be on there. And yeah, we'll get it in. That's not looking too bad at all. Now I'm thinking I've got an extra rock here. I'd like to try and set it up in a way that creates a little bit of shelter. So I might try and move this rush around and see about sitting the rock on a bit of an angle back this way. For the fish that I'm going to be putting in this scape, I'm hoping that the shelter sort of helps them out a little bit. Basic, it's held together with wing nuts, nice copper shield on it, good rubber foot, and you know, move it how I need to move it. It all sort of looks really good, and I think it'll complement the tank nicely. Yeah, see, now that looks alright. Looks fantastic with it like that. I might fix the position of it a little bit, maybe try and square it up a little more, and maybe turn it down just a smidge, because I think it might be just a tad bright, but the colour's great, the positioning I'm pretty happy with at the moment. So for now I'm going to get the filtration set up and we'll top it up with water. Right, so for the minute, it's looking murky as ever. Yeah, I'll just have to leave it for a couple hours to clear up, but I will be back very shortly. Just wanted to note that I also added beneficial bacteria and water conditioner to make sure that the water was all good and try and actually kickstart the cycle. Well, make sure it stays up and running at least, because the sand and the filter that I've used is already from a well-established tank and everything, so it's loaded with bacteria. So you can see here, it's still a fair bit cloudy, and there's a lot of pearling on everything because I've done another water change to try and clear it up a bit. But so far, it's looking pretty good. I'll get some more footage in a bit when it clears up a fair bit more. But I figured I'd start acclimating the fish that I've chosen for this. Probably can tell by the description on the video. I managed to get my hands on a little female Betta fish. It's a bit hard to see her in there. Now the small pet shop that in town here doesn't have a whole lot of options, but I haven't seen a female Betta like this before, and she's quite a nice yellow. Oh, come on, focus. There you go. Really, really nice colour. Sort of a honey colour with black stripes. Really, really wicked looking fish. I mean, I haven't seen one. They're usually really vibrant and bright and all kinds of different colours, but I haven't seen yellow. And I figured she'd look wicked in this setup. She'd blend in really well with the more earthy colours and would sort of, she'd just fit in, and there's tons of space for her to swim around. But yeah, well, I'll get her acclimated and we'll get her into the tank, and then we'll have a look in a couple hours time and we'll see what she reckons. Hey guys, so it's actually ended up being the next day. Had a lot going on yesterday, so gave it an extra day for the tank to start clearing up, and I've also done a water change in between. But yeah, it's looking wicked now. Let's have a look at it. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into the very first episode of Aiden's Odd Aquariums. I can't wait to get stuck into some more projects, and I hope you enjoy what's coming up. I've got some really creative ideas. I guess if you like what you see, hit like. Don't forget the subscribe button. Leave a comment. I'm always up for some constructive criticism, or to let me know you're just there to say hi. I'll do my best to get in touch with you, and I'll see you on the next one.